Oh man, I hope I don't get another copyright strike for this reaction. Let me just turn on the interrogation light. Sakbase, it's Beetle Boy, and today we'll be reacting to Game Theory's new video. Give me a second, I gotta check out what it's called. Yeah. And it is called SAO is the most expensive game. Now, let's get into it. I hope I don't get copyright strike for this. Matpat, come on, bro, chill. But, let's start the video in 3, 2, 1. Oh, quick advertisement. I'll tell you when it starts. My bad. I wish I had YouTube Red, dude. Now,
it's finally happening. Today, I get to enter a true virtual world for the very first time. Headset on, link start!
Greetings from virtual
who is this guy?
Well, that was unexpected.
Ooh, that must be low quality SAO. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. I watch film theory and game theory all the time. I don't watch all of it, but I do from time to time.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory. Film theory. You'll have to forgive me. I got my wires crossed today because today's theory is about a video game. Just not a real video game. Today we're going to be full diving into the world of Sword Art Online, one of the most popular and most controversial anime ever made.
GTA.
If you're not familiar with SAO already, the premise is pretty simple. In the year 2022, technology has advanced to the point that full sensory virtual reality is possible. Unlike the Oculus Rift or HTC Vive, Sword Art Online's Nerve Gear headset essentially projects its virtual world into users' dreams, allowing for full immersion without the need for a big play space. Oh! Thanks, everyone. Thank you all for warning me about that one.
Who knew you were gonna jump?
Thanks to everyone outside of here for taking care of the guy who's in virtual reality. 10,000 players immediately sign up and strap into the Nerve Gear to become a part of the world's first virtual MMORPG, Sword Art Online. Unfortunately, there's a tiny downside to this incredible technology. You see, it uses microwaves to interact directly with the human mind.
Okay.
And yeah, I do mean microwaves.
I already know, yeah.
Exactly like the ones that you used last night to reheat that leftover Salisbury steak. The companies selling these things say they aren't.
It won't kill ya,
actually do any
but it
damage. But as we all know, game developers have a habit of telling little white lies about their games to sell more copies. In this case, the little white lie is that Nerve Gear's creator Kayaba Akihiko has programmed the microwaves to fry the brain of any player who dies in the game.
The Nerve Gear will simultaneously destroy your brain,
as well as any player whose family tries to remove their helmet in the real world. So yeah, definitely understand why they wanted to leave that gameplay feature off the box art.
Prepare to literally die edition.
And incest, and you've got yourself one of the most famous and infamous animes of all time. Now, we've just entered 2018, meaning that the launch of SAO in 2022 is only 4 years away. In other words, if I have any hopes of becoming an in-game sword master with a fidget spinner on my outfit, as if I needed to give people more reason to hate this show, development needs to start now, and companies need to know how much would all of this cost to make. Creating fully immersive VR worlds is already happening, so by looking at current technology and trends in game development, we can
Sword Art Online might actually be real.
What it would take to throw a game like SAO together. And let me tell you,
the
world's first ever virtual reality massively multiplayer online
game
ain't gonna be cheap. So with that, I've got one thing to say to you: let's win. We can actually knock one of the hardest numbers out of the way immediately: the research and development cost of the Nerve Gear. In Volume 10, Chapter 2 of the light novels the anime is based on, it's shown that Kayaba Akihiko, the genius creator of SAO,
smart inventor person,
was paid 100 million yen in 2013, which translates to a little over $1 million at the time. Canonically, the development of both the game and the headset took 10 years, so with some simple math, we can see that the base cost of the game is at least $10 million. For this one guy alone, alone. And sure, that might seem like an egregious amount of money to pay one guy, but remember, Akihiko's job, aside from overseeing development, was to create the cutting-edge nerve gear hardware to run the game, and the complex AI programs that drive it. Some of which, like lovable, sacrificial cinnamon roll Yui, are close to being fully sentient. So while his salary is indeed expensive as all get out, he definitely earns it based off of his innovative technology. Now, obviously, you can't make a game this complex with just one person. It takes a whole team of developers. Unfortunately, neither the books nor the anime provide any hard numbers on the size of SAO's development staff, so even knowing the average salary of a game developer, we can't really determine anything conclusive based on that. Instead, we're gonna need to work backwards by looking at the world of SAO itself and figuring out what it would cost to build something of its scale based on the production costs of other games. Now, as an MMORPG, sorry, this is MMORPG. I can't take for granted that you know what that means. An MMORPG is short for massively multiplayer online role-playing game. Basically, that amounts to a living, breathing online world with tens of thousands of players, each taking on a different character. And as an online game, it's going to have a lot of unavoidable upfront costs before any content can even be made for it. Writing network code, running servers, programming the game's engine and AI behaviors all cost money. Now, most game studios are tight-lipped about their budget breakdowns, but fortunately for us, those costs don't tend to fluctuate very much between titles, and are thus fairly easy to predict. By comparing the reported budgets of other MMORPGs like World of Warcraft, Destiny, and Star Wars The Old Republic to single-player sandbox games of similar scale that released at the same time, we can ballpark those MMO-specific costs to somewhere between $10 and $30 million. Now, it may seem like a $20 million margin of error is huge, but trust me when I say it's just a drop in the bucket next to the game's biggest cost, art assets. The 3D models and textures for every object and character all need to be designed, animated, and given sound effects. Plus, they need to be placed in the world by level designers. And these are the costs that increase the most dramatically the larger and more varied the game worlds are. Which means that before we can calculate out how much that all costs, we need to know exactly how big the world of SAO is. Luckily, we're given some hard numbers to work with.
Right now, you're gathered on floor 1, the lowest level of Aincrad. If you can get through the dungeon and defeat the boss, you may advance to the next floor. Defeat the boss on floor 100, and you will clear the game.
The prologue of the first book reads, an impossibly huge castle of rock and hey, what are you looking at? The information is over here. We're doing the math now, and nothing, not even that lolly on the other page, is sexier than math, okay? Eyes on the prize, guys.
Fine.
An impossibly huge castle of rock and iron floating in an endless expanse of sky. That is the entirety of this world. A tireless month-long survey by a team of fanatical experts found that the fortress was about 10 kilometers in diameter. And considering the 100 floors stacked one on top of the other, the sheer vastness of the structure beggared the imagination. It was impossible to estimate the total amount of data it all represented. Impossible, you say? Sounds like a challenge. So as I just said, the bottom floor of Aincrad is 10 kilometers across. And since each floor of the castle is a perfect circle, that means its area is pi r squared, or 78.54 square kilometers, which is a few shy of the size of Grand Theft Auto 5's map. But that's only one floor. Aincrad is 100 floors tall. So does that mean you can cram 100 GTA 5s into SAO? Not quite. Early on in the anime, we're shown a side-on view of the castle, and as you can see, the floors gradually taper off to a point at the top. For the first 40 or so floors, that diameter stays pretty consistent, tapering off to 8.5 kilometers at this part that's jutting out. It's not a smooth curve, so it's a little hard to measure precisely, but for simplicity's sake,
I'm sorry, but like, it's just a lot of math, dude.
To be about 9 kilometers
I can't really I know that. I already knew that.
Each, about the same size as the world of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, meaning that the total area of these floors combined is a whopping 2,520 square kilometers.
Kilometers, oh my god.
Twice the size of Los Angeles. After this first chunk, the castle thins out substantially, so the next 28 floors only average about 6.5 kilometers in diameter, meaning that each floor is only 33 square kilometers in area, a little smaller than the size of Skyrim. Adding all those together, this block's total size is 924 square kilometers. The 27 floors after that get even smaller, tapering off to just 3 kilometers across the top, with an average diameter of just over 4 km between them, an area of just under 13 square kilometers, or 1.5 times the size of Fallout 4's world, and a total area of 344 square kilometers. Finally, the last 5 floors of the tower are much more elevated and defined, so we can get an exact measurement for all of those areas, which adds up to 9.2 square kilometers in total, which means that altogether the total landmass present in the game of SAO is an absolutely ridiculous 3,797
That's a lot of game
kilometers.
designing.
That is bigger than some countries. 28 countries to be exact. It would be the 11th largest city in the world. But surprisingly, that wouldn't make it the largest video game world ever created. It would actually make it the 4th largest video game world ever created, right behind Fuel, Daggerfall, and No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky is the only one I've heard of.
Generated, which, for all you non-game theory viewers, means that instead of building the game worlds by hand, the developers wrote code to create them automatically based on preset conditions, which is a great time-saving tool but can result in game worlds that feel very repetitive, or otherwise don't make a whole lot of sense. And this is what's so impressive about SAO the game. It isn't procedurally generated. The SAO Cardinal System AI does indeed generate some content, but it's only responsible for creating quests and adjusting the game's balance. It doesn't create environments. Each of those 100 floors are entirely man-made. Everything in the dungeons and the towns is placed by hand.
I couldn't do that.
The SAO Wiki, every one of the 100 floors is unique, which means that the developers couldn't even reuse most of the assets they created between floors. Each new level of Aincrad has unique NPC models, unique geography that ranges from snowy mountains to barren canyons to fields of flowers, not to mention forests of the coniferous, deciduous, and even spooky haunted varieties. Even architecture isn't the same across these 100 levels. Every town we see in the anime seems to be based on an entirely different culture, meaning that not even buildings could be reused between the floors. In other words, unlike many other games which save time and money by copy-pasting assets, each floor of SAO essentially requires a full game's worth of its own 3D assets. So the cost of building SAO directly scales with the size of its world. And knowing all of this, what we need to do to figure out its cost is find a similar game to compare it to. From the light novels, we see that the game's engine is heavy on simulation, using server-side calculations to dynamically generate realistic physics when players interact with things like cloth and water. So we're looking for a game with a large open world, high-fidelity graphics, and realistic animations, as well as physics models for things like water and weather effects, as well as cloth and hair on characters. And for the closest comparison possible, we want a fantasy game with a lot of wilderness and a few densely populated towns where you can enter every single building. Lastly, we want a game that's fairly recent, since most of SAO's 10-year development cycle would be working with current technology. Considering all those different factors, I think the best possible candidate here is Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt. Not only does it fit all of our criteria, it's also conveniently a rare example of a game where the developers have made their budget publicly available. So we know that the game's world is 136 square kilometers and that it cost $46 million to make. Obviously, a big chunk of that budget went towards things other than environmental assets and character models, so let's make a conservative estimate and assume that 1/3 of The Witcher's budget, cool $15 million, was dedicated to rendering its world and its characters. The world of SAO is 28 times the size of Witcher 3, and we'll add in one more Witcher to account for the massive 100-meter tall dungeons that connect every single floor of SAO, so in total, let's say that's 29 Witchers times $15 million, which gives us a stupefying amount of $435 million on art alone.
That's almost
plus
$1 billion.
$20 to $40 million to develop the game that we talked about earlier. That brings us to an astounding $475 million, easily making SAO the most expensive game ever made at over double the reported $200 million budget of Star Wars: The Old Republic. And remember, this is a very conservative estimate. The Witcher was developed in Warsaw, Poland, which has a much lower cost of living than, say, urban Tokyo, where Sword Art was developed, and thus lower average wages. So in all likelihood, the game's world cost several times that much to create. If we base our calculations off of Grand Theft Auto 5, whose development centers are in much more urban locations, the budget of SAO skyrockets to $1 $1,700 million to create.
I would have been the same way, like,
$1 billion. That's enough to cover the development and the marketing costs for the next 10 most expensive games ever made combined. And we are still not done, because SAO isn't just a VR MMO, it also gives its players sensory experiences for everything that they do in the game. That means the development team also needs to assign appropriate smells, tastes, and touch sensations related to everything in the game world. In theory, the Nerve Gear hardware could be used to record this data by reading signals from the brain as a person experiences those sensations, but you still need people to actually record those brain reactions in the first place, spending hours just touching and smelling fur, wet grass, metal, and literally anything else that might be in the game, eating all kinds of food, even having sex, which, as we learn in the infamously graphic bonus chapter 16.5, is yet another one of SAO's gameplay
I need to watch that chapter.
I guess since he was gonna kill them all anyways, Akihiko wasn't too worried about the game's ESRB rating. I'd estimate we need a team of at least 10 people to record and implement all these sensations, so if we base the salaries of these sense recorders off the industry standard rates for Foley artists, who are the sound engineers who record and edit sound effects for film and video games, kinda close to the same thing, that adds between another $5 and $10 million to our budget, which brings the price of creating a game like SAO to a grand total of $485 million if we're using our Witcher 3 estimates, which means that SAO would need to sell 7,250,000 copies at $60 a pop just to break even on the development costs. And using our higher GTA 5 based estimate, it would need to move 28,500,000 units, which is just a little bit more than the 10,000 copies of the game sold at launch. And we are still not even counting marketing or distribution costs. The only way they could possibly make their money back at this point would be to insert microtransactions. So maybe Kayaba Akihiko was actually doing everyone a favor. Sure, he might have killed thousands of people playing the game, but at least he didn't try to sell them loot boxes. But hey, that's just a theory.
Game theory.
Theory.
Sorry, I forgot too.
And hey, if you want to see my friend Jeff from the channel Mother's Basement fix what is widely considered to be the worst part of Sword Art Online, the whole fairy storyline, well then click the box to the left. It's a video that will have you wishing there was a way to go back and redo that story arc, because he's changed it into a narrative with real stakes that sounds incredible for these characters. Or if you want more anime content, well then click the box to the right, which will take you to my film theory, taking apart the mistakes that Edward and Alphonse made in their Full Metal Alchemist calculations.
Alright guys, and that is the end of the video. Now, it was an interesting reaction, I'm not gonna lie. But if you guys liked the video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video, alright? It's been your boy, Prof. Beetle, and au revoir.